Have you ever had something happen to you that made you question everything you thought you knew? Something that completely took you by surprise and left you speechless? Well, let me tell you about a time when I experienced just that. And it all started with a biker showing up at my wife's grave every single week. I had no idea who he was, but his actions changed the way I saw my wife, and ultimately, the way I saw life itself. It was one of those chilly Saturday afternoons when I first noticed him. The kind of day where the air feels crisp and the world is quieter than usual. I'd been visiting Sarah's grave for a while now. It had been months since she passed away. And though time had passed, the grief still felt fresh, as if it had just happened. Every Saturday, I would go to the cemetery to pay my respects to her, sit by her grave for a while, and reflect on everything we had shared. It became a weekly ritual, a way to stay close to her, even though she was gone. But on that particular Saturday, something was different. I wasn't the only one there. From a distance, I saw a man on a motorcycle. He had a dark leather jacket, tattoos peeking out from under his sleeves, and a rough, no-nonsense look about him. I watched him park his bike near Sarah's grave and get off. At first, I thought it was just another passerby, someone who might be visiting a friend or relative. But when he walked towards Sarah's grave and knelt beside it, I knew something wasn't right. I thought maybe he had the wrong grave. I mean, it's a big cemetery and people do make mistakes. But what struck me was that he didn't leave. He didn't bring any flowers or anything. He just sat there for a long time. I watched from my car, hidden behind a large tree, trying to make sense of the situation. He wasn't crying, wasn't talking to anyone, and didn't seem like he was in mourning. He was just there. Week after week, he came back. Same time, same place. And each time, he did the same thing. He sat by Sarah's grave, his head down, as if lost in thought. Sometimes he would bring nothing at all. Other times, he would bring a small item, like a coin or a rock, but nothing that made sense to me. No flowers, no sentimental items, just his presence. I couldn't figure it out. I'd sit in my car, watching him from a distance, growing more and more frustrated. Why was he doing this? How did he know Sarah? Why wasn't anyone else visiting her grave like he was? Her family didn't come often, but this stranger came every week without fail, and I couldn't take it anymore. My patience had worn thin, and I decided that I needed answers. I was going to confront him. The following Saturday, I showed up early, hoping to catch him before he had a chance to leave. I parked my car at the far end of the cemetery and waited. As soon as I saw him approach, I got out and walked towards him. I felt my heart race in my chest. I was angry, but I didn't want to be confrontational. I just needed to know the truth. Who are you? I asked, my voice sharp. Why do you keep coming here? How did you know my wife? He didn't respond immediately. He just sat there, staring down at the ground. For a long moment, I thought he might not answer. And then, very slowly, he looked up at me. His eyes were tired, but there was something gentle about them. I knew Sarah, he said, his voice calm but heavy with emotion. I didn't think you'd understand. I didn't think you'd believe me. I stood there, stunned. You knew her? You've been coming here every week for months, and you never thought to tell me who you are? I couldn't hide the disbelief in my voice. He nodded slowly. I didn't want to bother you. I didn't think it was my place to tell you, but I've been coming here because I owe her, more than I can ever explain. I stood there, trying to process what he was saying. This man, who had been visiting my wife's grave for months, wasn't a stranger at all. He was connected to Sarah, in a way I never imagined. I didn't know what to think, but I needed to know more. I needed to understand why he was so devoted to her memory. He took a deep breath, and then he began to speak, his voice steady, but filled with pain. He told me a story that I could never have imagined. A story about Sarah, my wife, the woman I thought I knew so well. But as he spoke, I realized there was so much I didn't know about her. Years before we met, Sarah had been a completely different person. She had faced struggles that I never knew about. This biker, whose name was Jake, had been a lost soul back then, spiraling down a path of addiction and self-destruction. He had no family, no one who cared about him. He was alone, and he didn't know how to get out of the darkness. One night, he had found himself sitting in a coffee shop, drunk and despondent, thinking that he had nothing left to live for. That's when Sarah walked in. She didn't know him, didn't know his story, but she saw the pain in his eyes. She sat down beside him, listened to him talk, and for the first time in a long while, Jake felt like someone cared. Sarah didn't try to fix him. She didn't try to tell him what to do. She just listened, and in that moment, she gave him something he hadn't had in a long time: hope. Over the next few weeks, Sarah kept in touch with him. She didn't judge him. She didn't tell him he needed to change. She just offered him support and compassion. It was Sarah's kindness that eventually led Jake to get the help he needed. With her encouragement, he went into rehab and turned his life around. But it wasn't just rehab that saved him. It was Sarah's belief in him, her willingness to give him a chance when no one else would. Jake told me that, for years, he'd been carrying the weight of what Sarah had done for him. But after she passed away, he felt like he could never repay her. He felt like he had failed her. And so, every Saturday, he came to her grave, not because he needed closure, but because he needed to honor the woman who had saved his life. He didn't want anyone to forget her, and he didn't want to forget her either. As he spoke, I felt a mix of emotions. I felt angry that I hadn't known this side of Sarah. I felt hurt that I had never known how much she had done for others. But most of all, I felt grateful. Grateful that this man, this stranger to me, had loved Sarah in a way that I had never seen. And then I realized something that changed everything. Sarah's kindness wasn't just about what she had done for Jake. It was about how she had impacted everyone around her. How she had been a beacon of light for people who were struggling, even when she didn't know they needed help. She had left a legacy, and it wasn't just a legacy of love for me, but for everyone she had touched. Jake's weekly visits weren't just about his grief. They were about honoring her memory, about reminding the world that she had mattered. As I stood there, listening to Jake, I realized that Sarah's life had been so much more than I had ever known. She had helped people in ways I could never have imagined, and I had been blind to it. From that day forward, I stopped seeing Jake as a stranger. He became someone who shared in Sarah's legacy, someone who understood the depth of her kindness in a way I never had. I didn't feel jealous or angry anymore. Instead, I felt a sense of peace. Sarah had done something incredible with her life, and I was proud to have been a part of it. I didn't need to be the only one who remembered her, because Jake, and countless others like him, would continue to carry her memory. The next Saturday, I went to the cemetery again, but this time, I wasn't alone. Jake was there, sitting quietly beside Sarah's grave. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. We both understood the significance of that moment. We both knew how much Sarah had meant to us, and how much she had changed our lives. As I stood there beside him, I realized something else. Sometimes, we don't fully understand the impact of the people we love. Sometimes, we don't see the ways they change the world around them. And sometimes, their legacy lives on through others in ways we never expected. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.